4 times over the course of The Master of the Eclipse, Leestel quotes Lathine's most famous historian, Namicon. Typically, these quotes act as omens for Leestel, but then of course, that raises a question. What is each omen trying to tell Leestel? Over the course of this 4-part series, we're going to cover each Namiconian quote and the true meaning of each one. The 4 Quotes of Namicon, Episode 1, One Last Effort. What happens when even the best of us try to saddle the line between good and evil? What happens when we tap into the dark and think we can tame it, even if our intentions are good? From Chapter 5 of The Master of the Eclipse, One Last Effort, we read the following. This is why you do not play with darkness, for you are only so strong a light. This is why you do not play with demons, for they will take you. Flee from the madness, your flame will be quenched. Why, oh why do none understand this? Namicon, insight into the days of old. The corruption of Leestel Unduly's soul had since begun at the end of Chapter 1. The warning of this being early on in Chapter 1. It looked like Teo knew what he was doing after all, because the malice upon me began to fade. Leestel killed the man and covered it up in Chapter 3. In Chapter 4, Leestel spends the first half of the chapter lying to the Eclipse about what had happened. And as Chapter 4 rolls on, something interesting happens. "Is this the Scion?" cried one, making my heart drop. "Is this the one who will wield Yaga?" cried another. Lathine had long since waited for the return of Yaga, the holy blade, and for its wielder to bring peace to the world. When these claims get thrown out at Leestel, however, that he is the Scion of Eclipse, the one to bring peace to the world, this is another instance where Leestel chooses to play with darkness. From Chapter 4, near the end, we read, "I laid a hand over my heart, did a little bow. I'd be careful to never claim to be the Scion, but all the same, since that ball was already rolling, it seemed wise to let it keep rolling in order to draw massive crowds easier." Leestel chooses himself, holds no guilt over playing with people's hopes in order to draw crowds easier. And what results? Leestel has the spat with Governor Komaleo Igatha to end Chapter 4. And what's worse, he tops off the chapter by lying to Lilio about what had happened with Governor Igatha. "What was all that about?" Lilio came over to ask, not as keen to this game as me. I shook my head. "Don't worry, he's just doing due diligence," I lied. Lathine just keeps straddling the line between good and evil, dipping his feet into the fires of hell to get what he's after. Thus, it's all too fitting for Lathine to recall an ancient warning of Namicon's at the beginning of Chapter 5. Do not play with darkness. Flee from the madness. Your flame will be quenched. All the same, Lathine pushes past this warning and tries his luck. It's all too fitting, then, that at the end of Chapter 5, when Master Gyogon asks Lathine if he's coming to Miyune Floor with the rest of the Eclipse, Lathine says this. I have decided, I told him, the darkness at my shoulder prodding me on, that I'm not going. The man known as the Pride of the Eclipse just keeps doubling and tripling down, listening to his darker inclinations at every turn, doing and saying whatever he pleases in order to get what he's after. And his intent is always righteous and good. But as Lathine says in Chapter 4 of the Master of the Eclipse, that doesn't always mean everything is good and well. What I had was nothing but righteous intentions. I wanted to feed, to be generous, to be merciful and loving, but sin? Sin seized an opportunity through me. Out of love, I looked upon the old man and his granddaughter with mercy, but sin caused my love to become hate. Made me feel hate beyond words, hate for Sohal, hate for what it was. And it wouldn't be long after that the wheels fell off completely for Lathine. He recognized all the issues he had, all the problems, all the ways he was taking his desires for good too far, and yet he kept going onwards anyways. And what ensued? Yes, as was bound to happen. Eventually, he completely lost it. He played with demons and darkness, only to be taken. From Chapter 7. A lone tear dripped down my face. I was going to kill again. I was going to let out all the hate, all the pain, all the confusion that had been writhing me for the long past while. If I just let it all out at once, splattered his blood everywhere, would I feel better? The darkness told me that I would, and I really did feel like it was right. The darkest chapter of The Master of the Eclipse was thus born. Lathine went on a demonic, blood-lusty rampage, killing man after man. Yes, he'd had his chances to turn back, all the chances in the world, and yet he didn't take any of them. The real lesson here is that when you know better, don't make the same mistake anyways. It's not worth it. Sometimes, things end up so much worse than you could ever begin to imagine. I could swear I heard laughter, but no one was laughing. I could swear someone was at my shoulder, prodding me on. Something was wrong, but I didn't care. I should have cared.
Lathine. We've waited since your birth for